Are we, when are we airing these? Are we going to air these in the new year? Christmas. Like December 25th.
Christmas. Yeah.
Oh. Can't we just make this a holiday challenge and air it like January 1st?
This is the Christmas special.
Damn it. Welcome back to the Scale Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. It's time for Monthly Mayhem again. I feel like we've done more Mayhems this year than ever, and this one's going to be a good one. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, what is this? What are we doing?
It's our first Christmas special.
It's a Christmas Mayhem miracle. First, let me start by wishing you all a very happy holiday season, whether it be Christmas or Hanukkah or any other holiday out there that you celebrate around this time of year. I hope you're having a safe and happy one. That's all that matters. Of course, you must be having a good one because you're watching this episode. If you're not familiar with what Monthly Mayhem is, it's where Josh from Harley Designs and myself take a vehicle and make it do something it's not supposed to do. We've made crawlers go fast. We've made cars fly-ish. We've done all kinds of things. This time is no different. We're taking the Traxxas Drag Slash, right here, this guy, and we're converting these to snow rails. It's not a lot of rules this time around. We are using parts from the Traxxas Drag Slash. We'll be using scale metal supplies from Scale Metal Supplies to create our own sand rails. Scale Metal Supplies is actually supplying a lot more than just metal supplies. They actually have chassis designed to use parts from the Slash to create these sand rails, and that's the initial intention, is a sand rail or a sand drag car.
We both got the Scale Metal Supply sand rail kit, but
Yes.
it's the middle of winter.
And that's not, even if it were summer, Josh, we still wouldn't do that. We'd wait until now.
It's not very
It's not mayhem. Sand rail on sand. Anyone can do that.
And instead of just doing sand rails on sand, we're going to make them snow rails
On snow.
on snow. So Matt and I each have to design and build our own snow rail.
We're going to be making them work in the snow. And the only real thing that we both have to do is make our own front skis. Because tires aren't going to work. You got to have skis for the snow.
The goal in the end
Is just to build it.
it is.
Yeah.
And to run it, to have the video done for our very Christmas release.
Because it's in
Yes.
it's in December.
And we have less than a month to get this
Oh my
done.
God. As usual.
We're going to have like a couple weeks basically.
Traxxas is also providing us with paddle tires for the rear, because this is going to be a rear-wheel drive car. And that's about it. We're going to use Scale Metal Supplies to create cages, make these look as realistic as possible. We're going in vastly different directions, I'm sure. But what day is it today? We have from now, December 4th, until December 24th at 11:59 p.m. to finish our projects. December 25th, these will go live. So hopefully you've spent enough time with the family, and now you're back on YouTube where you belong.
I have no plans. The only plan that I have is the actual style that I want to go with.
I don't have time to mock this up in CAD, learn a bunch of new techniques to build a cage in CAD. I can't do that. I don't have time for that. I'm freehanding this one. It has to be freehanded. That's all I can do.
I probably don't have time to do a bunch of CAD either.
Yeah. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to show you some of the parts from Scale Metal. Where'd that stuff go? Oh. Scale Metal Supplies sent us a bunch of supplies, including steel rod. And this time it's rod, not tube. So I'm going to have to get a different bender to make that work. We can use this to create body panels if we're so inclined. And then here is the chassis plate that Scale Metal Supplies creates to convert your Slash. They also make ones for Associated Electronics, and even a third one, maybe for the Sand Scorcher, actually. So lots of different options out there. We're going to be using the one for the Slash. SMS also included a bunch of fab tabs. We're going to definitely need these to build up a cage and make things mount to other things. We're not going to be welding aluminum to steel, that's for sure. All right, so I think our first step is to disassemble the Traxxas Slash and get all the parts off of it that we're going to need and start putting them onto the chassis. Sounds like a good first step. Then we're going to have to probably do some design, maybe even on paper with a pencil, to figure out how we're going to build a cage with all of these materials to make it look as realistic as possible. And we're going to have to figure out some sort of ski. Got some ideas going on in my head. I really want to use, because I'm Canadian, and it makes sense, it's winter, I should use hockey sticks in some way. I would love to use hockey sticks for the skis and for the back rail to kind of keep everything in place. Let's see how we can do that. I think that would be really cool. And yeah, this is mayhem, man. This is how it works. It's just kind of toss everything up and hope something sticks. All right, let's get to disassembly. Well there, I think we're done. Clearly this is a DIY kit, and you're going to need to do a lot of your own kind of fabricating to make this all work. The chassis platform, the chassis plate itself, quite easy to attach, and I've just used the existing screws for now, which are countersunk. I won't be using those obviously because that's ugly, but it's pretty easy to get the rear set up and on there. The front does take a little more effort. There are a lot more moving pieces and some additional parts are required. SMS does supply something at least, but there are some additional pieces that are required. And we're going to go online, we're going to order those and figure out what else we possibly could need going forward. But hey, at least we started. 20 days to go. I don't know why I do these. Every time I tell Josh, why are we doing this again? And certainly, why are we doing this so soon? After cage and battery placement and electronics, the most DIY portion you're going to have to do is steering, and the bell cranks and that whole setup is going to have to be replaced because you can't take them off the plastic piece that comes on the Slash. Those bell cranks are built in. They're plastic pieces that are molded into this lower portion, and this assembly, this plastic assembly, isn't used again. So in order to get new bell cranks, you'll have to find some online. Apparently, the Yeti ones from Vanquish will work. There are other ones from Atomic RC, and I'm going to have to source those very quickly because there is not a lot of time for this build, and I really do have to get on the fabrication end of things and the skis. Can't forget. Don't stop watching the skis. Man, there's so much to do on this project. But at least mechanically, this one's going to be pretty darn simple because it's two-wheel drive. The transmission is all one piece from Traxxas. There's not a lot of fiddling that has to be done there, thankfully. I will say it's a really great thing to constantly be buying kits because, as it turns out, because I have an EXO to build at some point in the future, I've already got those standoffs for the bell crank steering. That's amazing. I can't even believe that. Hilarious. Okay, let's do the steering changeover. And there we go. That was way easier than I was anticipating. That's fantastic. Scale Metal Supplies did their homework, put all the holes in the right places. Those Yeti posts work absolutely perfectly for this setup. Everything is dialed in. It's fantastic. I'm so happy with the results so far. Now that we've got that chassis and the basic kind of setup that we need, I think it's time to actually pause from doing anything mechanical and go to the sketchbook and go to Google and see what kind of other sandrails there are out there and what sort of design we're going to go for. I think I'm going to do a two-seater. I think it's just going to look better than a single-seater, only because that way it's going to scale out a little bit better for my tastes. So yeah, I think that's sort of where we're going to have to pause for now. And the next thing you're going to see is some fabrication. which is amazing. That's great. This conversion kit helps a ton.
Okay, so there's my cardboard template. Cardboard aided design is an unsung hero in this workshop. I do so much stuff with cardboard, and just being able to have this and know where everything is going to be and how it's going to mount up prior to doing any actual work is so key. As you can see, the basic layout here of the electronics is done. This is, obviously how it's going to sit going forward. This has this chassis, Scale Metal Supplies. It's got a lot of flexibility, and that's not, you don't want that, obviously. You want more rigidity. And what we're going to do is we're going to start bending up some metal here to create sort of a substructure for the cage that will inevitably go on this car. So we've already started doing some bends. The idea will be to sort of like create this sort of like platform, basically, that the rest of the cage work will go on. And I've bent it up to sort of match the template of the cardboard for the final chassis. And then these holes here are going to be where everything mounts. And then once these pieces are in place, then we can start to build up and make it more of a traditional sort of caged chassis kind of car. It's going to be a sand rail, but for snow. So the idea here is to do another bend for the opposite side with this piece of solid rod. And we've got this really handy tube bender right here. This works spectacularly well. You just kind of place it in, mark where you want things to bend, and then go ahead and just use this thing to bend it. Lots of leverage, which is good because this is solid rod. And I'm using solid at the bottom here because, that's where I want more weight, and I also want the most rigidity. So I may end up using tube for finishing up the top of the cage just to keep it a bit lighter. But this is great. This is highly repeatable, this thing. So we find sort of our pivot point where the bend started. That seems to be about right. And then we line up our next piece of tube, and we're going to try and repeat the same bend. And there we go. Okay, so now that things are lined up, our lengths are the same, I can basically just start putting some tension on here. I'm going to bend it to match that other piece. And that's obviously, it's not going to be the same because you need to apply a little further tension to get that to go. So we're going to take out our bottom piece for a second. Place this back in. Give it another touch. And in fact, what we could do is we could actually mark on this platform where this went. Right? You can see that's where we have to get to. So why don't we just put a little marker line like there. So we know how far we need to bend it. Brilliant. And I'll go a little bit beyond. A little bit more. And there we go. That should be a perfect match, which it pretty much is. That's fantastic. Great. This side, these are mirrored, and that's the whole point of this. Fantastic. Great. Great. Love it. Amazing. Now we can do the second bend. This part is pretty simple. There's not a lot to do on this end of things. Let's see, about there. And I think we have to bend it opposite direction, so make that our pivot point. Try to keep this as straight as possible. Just give it a touch of a bend there. See how much more we need to do. A little bit more. All in an effort to get these to be as sort of similar as possible. And it's more of an art for me and less of a science. But it's, you know, half the fun is experimenting and trying things and wasting material. Not wasting, you're learning things. So there you go, perfect. Close enough for jazz. Actually, this is a lot closer than I usually am, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. Okay, then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and kind of make sure that we're sort of in the same location here. All of our bends, which appears like we are, and then I'm just going to mark this and cut off the excess. All right, now we've got two sides ready for the next step. It's great. I feel very pleased about that. There, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at where we can add some rigidity here. We're also going to start thinking about placement for seats and steering wheel and driver and passenger and such, because we've got a limited amount of space to work with. But what I'm going to do probably is also build up some kickouts towards the rear, just to give it a bit more space for the actual cage, so we're not just limited to this right here. But that's all going to come with more planning. But good first steps. And metalwork is fun. I highly recommend it. If you do not do it now, you should look into getting some of the materials you'll need. I'll try to kind of keep a running tally of all the things that I've used or have in my collection that you would need to do basic metalwork like I do in this tiny little workshop. We're also going to be using some of these tabs. These are just like fabrication or fab tabs. That's what I would call them. We're going to use some of these here probably for how we're mounting this metal to the chassis plate. We're going to use some of those longer tabs right there, just kind of braze them into the edge, and those will be our mount points. They should work perfectly. Scale Metal Supplies obviously makes these, and they are super handy. I could not recommend them enough. There's also a bunch of other ones that he's included for purposes of our builds here. Some of these can be used as like shock mounts or mounts for accessories. There's a lot of different ways to use them. These ones here are fantastic because these are more like for panel, like body panel mounts. Really handy to have these.
obsessed with Christopher Durang. Like every play was like, oh my god, let's do a Christopher Durang play, because it was he was kind of like the Neil Simon of.
Okay, so what we're doing now is, well, obviously we've got a fair bit of cage work sort of already accomplished here, as you can see. I've already added sort of a top tube and some sides and the kickouts, and it's all, you know, it's starting to like look like a thing, which is kind of cool. Makes me feel pretty good about myself. A couple of minor things that'll need to be adjusted. In order to get full steering lock, I will need to shave away some of the material on the steering parts. Not a big deal. I can also shave away some of the actual metal. That'll be fine. I'm not too worried about that. But what I want to do now is I want to make like sort of this, kind of referencing this buggy here. And what I want to do this time is, well, what I want to do right now is I want to build this bend right here. And of course, I can do some pretty complex bends with this new bending brake that I have here. So what we're going to try to do is kind of accomplish this sort of like more wide bend. And of course, there's a whole bunch of different options. You can use like one of these, and all you do is you put that over that, and then it becomes a wider turn around this thing. And I'll use a scrap piece of material. I'm not going to like wreck good tube here, because I just want to experiment and see how this is actually going to look. And that's going to be, wow, that's going to be basically exactly what I want. That's fantastic. So obviously not a long enough piece, but that's exactly the type of bend I want. Amazing. That's fantastic. Chuffed is the word I'd be looking for. So let's get some more solid rod in there, and we'll do some proper measuring, because we obviously don't want to interfere with the suspension travel on this car. And I'm kind of hoping that I can kind of kick this up a little bit diagonally like this, and then have this bend around and come into our top tube. Let's give that a shot. Well, look at that. Skis. These are awesome. These are from Dubro. Dubro. The snowboard snow skis. And I got them in blue. Because, you know, winter. Icy. Ice to see you. Anyway. A few other things that need to happen to make these actually work. They're designed for planes. So, of course, this isn't really set up to work this way. Of course, these mounts don't have a hex on them, and this is just going to spin endlessly because, you know, there is no way to keep them upright. But because of the way this whole thing works, they won't be able to rotate around very much, which is good. You don't want these to rotate all the way around, because then this thing would just flop around and suck. So we're going to design a mount that has a 12 mil hex built in, and then that'll push the ski in a little bit further, probably to about there. And then that should actually not allow full rotation in either direction, because it's just going to be hitting the steering, or it'll just hit all the suspension bits, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. There is a way to get a spring, so like some spring tension into that ski, so it always kind of creates this sort of positive motion. It won't ever go backwards, which is what you want. So we're going to try to find a way to incorporate all of that and finish that out. Now you can see I've also got a nose piece printed to kind of cover some of the other elements. Dash is still the rough piece, same with the rear piece. Tail lights. I started showing these off on Instagram in my stories the other day. These are amazing. Look at these. This is that flexible chip on board LED strip, and it comes in a big long spool. You get a ton of it. It's on Amazon. I'll be sure to put a link in the description so you can check this stuff out. It's very, very cool stuff. I've got it in this red, and I've also got it in sort of a natural white, so I'm going to do some sort of headlight thing too. But I just thought that looked awesome as taillights, and I'm also going to print clear covers so we don't see that actual board, which is good. And got it all wired up through some JSTs, and just need to change out the connector. But yeah, that's all coming together. I'm going to jump on the Fusion here in a second and redesign this piece to work with our front assembly there. We'll raise up the skis a little bit too. I feel like we could use another like centimeter or so just to get it a little further off the ground, because I think you want to have this sort of like nose up so it doesn't just plow. That's going to be the thing. I have not heard back from my media blasting guy. I'm a bit nervous considering it's the 13th. 12 days to go before this video comes out, so we may just have to give it a good hot bath in soapy water and hit it with some sanding paper. Listen to me. Yeah, so that's where it's at. It's coming together. It's going to be a lot of fun. I do need to print out a side pod. I do want to cover this whole section, and I just have to do some math, which I'm terrible at, for kind of creating a triangle that's going to fit into that space. So that's there's two things on today's menu. Redesign this piece and design a piece to sit in there. Okay, let's get on that. All right, that is definitely looking good. I cannot thank the guys over at Brightside enough. I kind of went in with the intention of just getting it sandblasted or media blasted, and then I was going to prime it and paint it myself. But as you can see, I kind of went in there and I said, I'm just going to, I know it's like your last day, you guys are shutting down for the holidays. Let's just media blast it. I'll bring you a coffee. They were like, so why aren't you getting it powder coated? I said, well, I don't want to waste your time. I know you guys are getting ready to go on holiday. And they're like, do you have half an hour? And I was like, yeah. They said, let's do it. So we did it. It's so great. The color matches the skis like dead on. It's perfect. They called this color Playboy Blue. And I was like, that's perfect. That's the perfect name for this color. Anyway, so it's all done thanks to the guys there. Spectacular. I'm so happy. I could not have asked for anything better. It looks amazing. It's all back together. It's all in one piece now. Everything's been wired up. I've tested it. It works. Battery placement was a bit of a thing. So now, there's a bunch of extra wires going on here. I need to Velcro strap the case, this is actually the battery tray from Team Associated Enduro. Battery will sit there, Velcro strap everything in place. The seats kind of help friction fit everything there. And then that's it, basically. I just have to decide. Well, I have decided. Originally, I was going to use these 3D printed panels. I'm still going to use the dash. That's still going to go there as it should. That was just a prototype piece. I'm going to print up a smoother one now. But I'm not going to use these panels. And I was also going to print panels for the sides. I'm just going to use Lexan. This thing is actually getting fairly heavy. And I want to kind of keep that weight down. So I'm just going to use Lexan now. I've already cut some graphics. And we're just going to make some templates here and cut out these pieces. There'll be one for there. There'll be one for the back. There'll be 2 on either side. And that'll basically be it. It's all good. It works. It's ready to go. Let's turn it on here. All the steering you'd want. And plenty of power. Those paddle tires are going to rip. Final thing we need, really, most important thing, is snow. There still is no snow. So I may have to travel for that.
All right, so after skipping a whole bunch of steps, here's where we finally landed with Chilly Willy. I'm quite proud of that name. Can have a double meaning. Here it is. It's all done. The Traxxas drag car with the scale metal supplies aluminum chassis is all ready to hit the snow. Some things have changed, of course. Painted panels now. Lexan painted panels on the sides, the roof, and the hood. We've also got a fully functional working driver now. Good old snowman. It's cool to have a little snowman as a driver there with a human body. But as you can see, it's all powered up and working except for one of the headlights. I do want to get that fixed because I do want to have 2 functioning headlights. I think it just looks better, especially with these functioning taillights, which don't those look amazing? They look so good like that. I did put a little bit of clear, I kind of made a clear lens. I 3D printed those as well. And it fits over there perfectly. I think it looks awesome. I'm very pleased with the quality of light that comes out of these COB LEDs. They just look awesome. They're not super warm or anything. They just so cool. I am also very pleased with these painted panels. I think they turned out really good, and they do a good job of kind of making this whole car feel as though it's one. They fit well with the theme. I love the silver shiny stripes that I put in there, and then the multiple colors of blue. I used all the on-point paint that I had on hand. I am just so pleased with the look of this car. It looks the part of an old school sand drag or snow drag car. This is exactly what I envisioned when I started working on it. And I'm just so pleased that Brightside was able to not just media blast it for me in a day, but also powder coat it for me in like half an hour. They're like, we're getting ready to go on Christmas vacation, but we'll fire up the oven just for you. And that was so super nice of them. And super nice of Traxxas to send along the drag tires for the Slash. Makes this thing work a lot better in the snow, presumably. And also, of course, to Scale Metal Supplies for sending all the metal supplies, including this really great aluminum plate chassis underneath, which does convert the Slash into this model that you see here. It was a super easy conversion, and if you've never tried brazing, if you've never worked with metal, if I can do it in this tiny little 8x10 workshop, surely you can as well. And I cannot stress, learning is the best thing about this hobby. I learn new things every single time I build a new vehicle, and this one was no different. I'm really pleased with the results overall. I think it looks spectacular, and I cannot wait to get it outside. So without further ado, this mayhem is over, except for the actual running video. And of course, there's no snow at all. I'm going to have to go a little further north to find some, but we're going to go find some very shortly here and do some really spirited driving with Chilly Willy.
Let's go. We ready for anything given. Woo! I'm talking buried equipment. Woo! You know it's time to go get it. You never did listen, we very exquisite. Me and my army, we unsung with it. I got the planet and y'all come with it. I got to hand it to all y'all living. You got the land, let's all go finish. Rise up. If you wanna forget behind us, I'm about to go run the miles up. I'm about to make mama proud up. Don't get me started, I'm riled up. Don't get me going, my people are soft. The signal, they sing it and lined up. In the snow where they find us. Rah! We're ready at all time, it's a goal. It's where my mind is. I got my both eyes on the snow. It's where you find it. We're ready at all time, it's a goal. It's where my mind is. I got my both eyes on the snow. It's where you find it. We ready at all time, it's a goal. It's time that we ride. I got my both hands on the sleigh. I'm turning the tide. We ready at all time, it's a goal. It's time that we ride. I got my both hands on the sleigh. I'm turning the tide. Yeah, I'm the king of the bits, they never seen this before. Santa gon' give you the script, yeah, he better leave you in awe. You know who they call when there's evil involved. Right in the star, the bigger they fall. Feeling like I've been defeating the odds ever since I put my knees on the floor. Born sinner with a key to the door. My city got an evil galore. My city never leave with the law. Santa Claus got me ready and all. Hey, we ready for anything coming our way. Let's settle the score. Foot in the door, don't rattle the bar. Reindeer still asking for more. We're ready at all time, it's a goal. It's where my mind is. I got my both eyes in the snow. It's where you find it. We're ready at all time, it's a goal. It's where my mind is. I got my both eyes in the snow. It's where you find it. We ready at all time, it's a goal. It's time that we ride. I got my both hands on the sleigh. I'm turning the tide. We ready at all time, it's a goal. It's time that we ride. I got my both hands on the sleigh. I'm turning the tide. We ready at all time, it's a goal. It's time that we ride. I got my both hands on the sleigh. I'm turning the tide. We're ready at all time, it's a goal. It's time that we ride. I got my both hands on the sleigh. I'm turning the tide.
There you go. Some fun times with Chilly Willy. I think that's going to wrap up this mayhem, and I hope that you're having an enjoyable holiday, and we'll be sure to have a lot more fun, cool content coming from not just myself, but Josh over at Harley Designs Inc. in the coming new year, which I hope you have a safe and prosperous one. Happy holidays, everyone. We'll see you again soon.